isn't a substantial change in the course of this war, and I don't see any change coming.
You may be absolutely right, and we'll see. But if Democrats always say that the public is on their side, we speak for America, they say time and again, on the question of Iraq. If that's true, then why can't you muster enough votes to override a veto? If the public is really on your side, isn't that how democracy is supposed to work?
Because we have a tension here. It's an inherent tension. We are determined to support the troops, Tucker. That is our first priority, and we will not take votes or any kind of action that will deny the funds necessary for those kids fighting on the battlefield. They are the only ones being asked to make any sacrifice in this war, they and their families. We're simply being asked to go out and spend our tax cuts at the local mall. So we are not going to make them fight a war under even more difficult circumstances, and that's what we were presented with. If you want the money to support the troops, then you're going to have to go along with the president's approach to this war. We disagree with it, but we will not sacrifice the support for the troops. That's where we are.
That's not where Nancy Pelosi is. She came out yesterday and said, I quote, "I would never vote for such a thing. I'm not voting for this bill. I'm not voting for funding the troops." You just said how important it is to vote for funding for the troops. Why isn't your own speaker going to vote for it?
I'm not going to vote for it either, Tucker, but we are not going to create a situation where there will not be enough money for the troops. We know this bill is going to pass with virtually every Republican vote and probably a lot of Democratic votes. But out of principle, in opposition to this fiasco in Iraq, I'm going to vote against it. But I know it's going to pass. I know the troops will get their money. We were not going to delay the process, knowing that the president is going to veto everything we send up. So we have, this is not particularly a retreat, but it's a strategic move in order to let the funds go forward. We're going to revisit the issue again in September. By then, I think we'll have an even tougher bill, and we'll have even more support from the Republican moderates.
But can't you see why people who aren't sophisticated in the ways of Washington might be confused when the Speaker of the House comes out and says, this is the deal we've struck, and by the way, I don't support it. This is the deal that I struck. I did, Nancy Pelosi, along with Harry Reid and the anti-war left. This is our deal, but I'm not for it? Doesn't that, is that a little confusing?
Well, it's certainly in the way, in the context in which you put it, I can understand why people might be confused, but the reality is that this is the best that we could get. We now know we can't get more than 218 votes. We can't get anywhere near a veto override. That's just the reality of the situation. Politics is the art of compromise. We are compromising in the sense that we're letting this bill move forward. It won't have our support, but the majority of the Congress wants to do this. We're giving the president basically more rope. He can do what he wants to do with it, but there's no question now that the president and the Republican Party own this war. We will give them the funds that they want to pursue whatever strategy they want, but personally, and from the collective standpoint of the majority of the Democrats, we don't think this strategy is working, and that's what our vote will say.
Well, and you may be absolutely right, the strategy is not working, but if you're paying for the war, and you are, it's hard to see how it's exclusively the property of the Republicans. I'm wondering if
the American people are paying for it, and we're their elected representatives, but the power of the purse only goes so far. The president has the bully pulpit. He's the commander-in-chief, and he may have prevailed on this legislative skirmish, but as I say, the war against the war is not over by a long shot.
I wonder